Have you heard of the 7-foot tall Roman emperor that started as a peasant but rose to being the Roman emperor in the mid-3rd century? Welcome to Jeremy Roman Empire. My name is Jeremy Ryan Slate. I am your host. And on this channel, we cover Roman history, ancient history, and we also relate it to the modern world. Over the last year, I've went on some of the largest podcasts out there, including Timcast, Dinesh D'Souza, Valuetainment, many others, and talked about how the Roman Empire, specifically its 3rd century, relates to our modern world. On this channel, we're going to be taking a look at different topics that relate to the Roman Empire and how you can see them in your modern world, and also the solutions that can come about from them. So enjoy diving into the content of this channel, and do that by liking this video, subscribing, and hitting that notifications bell so you don't miss another video on this channel. Today, we're deep diving into the wild life of Maximinus Thrax, a Roman emperor who rose from a peasant to a ruler, crushed armies, but he never saw Rome itself. Picture this: a man supposedly 7 feet tall, known as the big man from Thrace, whose reign sparked a century of chaos in the Roman Empire. We're talking epic, brutal falls and lessons that still hit hard today. In fact, we could see Maximinus Thrax as the guy that sparks the crisis of the 3rd century. If you want to see more of the threads I write on topics just like this, follow me at Jeremy Ryan Slate on X. The exciting thing about this thread is we actually got some engagement from Elon Musk on it. So apparently Elon is interested in what we have to say. So let's set the stage. Maximinus Thrax, born around 173 AD. And once again, on this channel, you will see AD and BC. We don't use the terms CE and BCE. Sorry. So he's born around 173 AD in a small village near the Danube River. And he came from humble Thracian roots. His nickname Thrax literally means the Thracian in Latin, a nod to his origins in what's now parts of Bulgaria, Greece, and Turkey. Thrace was a rugged region, and Maximinus grew up in a peasant family far from the marble halls of Rome. His early life was shaped by harsh realities of the frontier, where strength and survival went hand in hand. As a young man, Maximinus joined the army, using his sheer physical prowess to climb the ranks. Standing out in a military culture that valued discipline and might, he was a rarity, an outsider who wasn't from the senatorial or equestrian classes. And I think that is a very important point as well, is in early Rome, in the empire, not the Republic period, which is before this, in the early empire, all of the emperors were from the senatorial classes. It's not until the 3rd century, which we're talking about now, that you're going to start seeing emperors coming from the equestrian classes. Equestrian classes meaning those that had enough money to buy a horse and fight in armed combat, but they weren't in the senatorial classes. So now we're going to fast forward to 235 AD. Maximinus is commanding the Legio IV Italica under Emperor Severus Alexander. Severus Alexander is the emperor that takes over for the most hated emperor, in my opinion, in Roman history, Elagabalus, who brings the cult of Elagabal to Rome. The Roman Empire is set on shaky ground, facing invasions and economic troubles, a period we now call the crisis of the 3rd century. And here's where it gets dramatic. Severus Alexander's troops mutiny. They're fed up with his leadership, especially after he tries to buy off Germanic tribes instead of fighting them. The soldiers kill Alexander and proclaim Maximinus emperor on the spot. This is something that was happening very frequently in the 3rd century, but Maximinus could be seen really as a blueprint for how the military did it. They would take their commander, they would dress him in the purple, and they would proclaim him emperor. Now, he would have to defend that royal purple as emperor and defeat any other claimants or other individuals that could claim themselves to be emperor. There's a story of one emperor that they took their military flags, which were purple, and sewed them together and put them on him as his purple robe to proclaim him emperor. So this is a very interesting military action that's occurring, and Maximinus could really be seen as a blueprint for how it's done in the 3rd century. This moment marks a turning point. Maximinus becomes the first emperor who didn't hail from Rome's elite classes, a true rags to riches story. But this also makes him an instant target for the Senate, who sees him as a barbarian upstart. Maximinus wastes no time proving his worth on the battlefield. He leads his legions across the Rhine and Danube rivers, taking on the Alemanni and other Germanic tribes. His campaigns are brutal, but they're very effective, earning him the title Germanicus Maximinus. And this is important too. Military commanders would take titles such as Germanicus, Africanus, the Great, and this was really describing their military prowess, because Rome is a culture built on military prowess and military command. One of his most notable victories comes in the marshes of Magna Germania. Possibly as far as the Elbe River, Maximinus defeats the Germanic encirclement attempt, securing Rome's borders and bringing back heaps of plunder for his troops. But here's the catch. While Maximinus excels as a military leader, he struggles with the politics of empire, because remember, he's from the equestrian class and not even born a Roman. So he wouldn't have really understood politics, and he also never lived in Rome, and he would never see Rome in his lifetime. To keep his soldiering loyal, he doubles their pay, a move that sounds great, but comes at a steep cost. And this is going to be an action that's repeated by other commanders in the 3rd century, and why Roman inflation by 284 AD, by the rule of Diocletian, reaches around 15,000%. To fund this, Maximinus imposes heavy taxes and confiscates wealth from the Roman elites. The Senate and the populace start to resent him, viewing him as a tyrant who cares more about his army than the empire's stability. This resentment festers. Maximinus' outsider status and military focus make him a polarizing figure. The Senate, already wary of his power, begins to see him as a threat to their influence. Meanwhile, Maximinus never even sets foot in Rome during his reign. He's too busy fighting on the frontiers, a decision that symbolizes his disconnect from the heart of the empire. For many Romans, this is a step too far. He's ruling an empire he doesn't even visit. By 238 AD, the tension boils over. A revolt breaks out in Africa, where 2 men, Gordian I and Gordian II, are crowned as rival emperors. Gordian I was the father, and Gordian II was the son. Gordian I would have taken the title Augustus, or senior emperor, and Gordian II would have taken the title Caesar, or junior emperor. The Senate throws its support behind them, sparking a full-blown civil war. Now, you have to understand, in Roman culture, civil wars do happen quite often. During the Republic, they happened whenever one man got too much power, be it Sulla, be it Marius, be it Julius Caesar. In the Empire, it happens more for a shaky dynasty, or at the end of a dynasty. So you see it at the end of the rule of Nero. You see it at the end of the rule of Commodus. You see it at the end of dynasties, but also in shaky dynasties, as well as you see this during the rule of Elagabalus. Maximinus, determined to crush the rebellion, marches toward Rome, but his campaign stalls in the city of Aquileia, in modern-day northern Italy. The city's defenders hold strong, and Maximinus' troops start to feel the strain. Supplies run low, morale plummets. Maximinus' soldiers, once fiercely loyal, begin to turn on him. Starving and frustrated, they assassinate Maximinus and his son, ending his 3-year reign in a brutal betrayal. This moment is a stark reminder of the harsh reality. Loyalty bought with money can vanish when the going gets tough. Maximinus' failure to build trust and coalitions beyond his military base ultimately leads to his downfall. A lesson for politicians both past, present, and future. Maximinus' death marks the beginning of decades of chaos for Rome. His reign kicks off the crisis of the 3rd century, a 50-year period of instability, civil war, and near collapse for the Roman Empire. And this could be seen by many Romans during this time period as they thought it was the end of their empire. This will lead to, in 249, the Emperor Decius seeing barbarians coming off of the borders and seeing natural disasters. The end of the Roman climate optimum was ending around this point, which means that it became hard to get grain. He forces sacrifices to the gods in an attempt to placate them, and this will become one of the biggest persecutions of Christians in 249. But getting back to our friend Maximinus, his fall teaches us just as much that ambition can take you far, but without balance, without diplomacy, economic savvy, and broad support, it's fleeting triumph. Maximinus' isolation, both literal and political, sealed his fate. Now let's zoom in for a minute here. Maximinus just wasn't a one-off. This is a pattern of the Thracian Roman emperors who rose through the military in the 3rd to the 5th centuries. These are figures like Areolus, Galerius, and Leo I, who jumped from common soldiers to emperors. This becomes a pattern. His life has also left a cultural mark. Maximinus Thrax inspired artists, writers, and even video game creators who depict the bravery and battles won of the Roman era. You might spot him in Roman history documentaries or museums today. So, what can we take away from Maximinus Thrax? First, harness your great strengths. His military skill kept Rome's enemies at bay. Second, build coalitions. His failure to win over the Senate and the populace left him vulnerable. Finally, adapt. Maximinus' inability to balance his military focus with the needs of a broader empire led to his downfall. In leadership, as in life, it's not just what you achieve, but it's who you bring on the journey. That's today's deep dive into Maximinus Thrax. What do you think of his story? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear them. If you enjoyed this episode, give it a like, comment on this video, smash the subscribe button, and hit that notifications bell so you don't miss a new episode. Be sure to check me out over on X. I am at Jeremy Ryan Slate, where I write threads just like this. I'm also on Substack and over at jeremyryanslate.com.